So, good evening, everybody. Today is December the 12th, 2019. And the topic for tonight's A New Human Experience podcast is the three letters process. So, I know that working on ourselves is not always an easy journey or an easy game. I like to sometimes look at it as a game because life really is a game. And especially if we are really too far down the rabbit hole. What I mean by that is that we kind of truly and forget that we who we truly are as a soul, as we actually believe that we are playing in this human game, that we are our body, and that whatever shows up in our life, that's it. It's we are actually in it. However, the so for those people who can't seem to wake themselves up to really remember who they truly are, it's really a soul having a human experience. When they are too far down the rabbit hole, then it's very hard to have a perspective on it. So when I get one of those clients, this is the process I would use with them, because this is I would say a more, I would say a less intimidating process, uh, more or less intimidating, or I should say less mystical process, that even the people who truly believe that this is this life is all they have, and that this life is not a game, it's real, and everything they do really is, they're in the deep of it, then this is what I would use with them. So what I do with them is I tell them to do the first letter. So the first letter is really a letter to themselves. And when I say letter, I use letter in a very loose sense, because it is writing a letter, but it's also a process as well. It's not just writing it down. There's a lot of process behind it, as well as I would describe. So first letter is a letter to ourselves. So the aim of this first letter is really for my client to see the patterns that they have adopted or created or somehow running in their lives so far. And it's because that their life is not working in some level. That's why they would come and seek to work with someone like me. So in order for them to see the pattern that they're running, instead of me telling them, because it's more empowering for someone to see their own pattern, then they won't forget it anymore. Whereas if I tell them, then depending on how much they believe me or not, they may, like, even if I tell them, they may just kind of dismiss it, deny it, and just and fight me every which way. However, if I help them to see their own pattern, then it's much more empowering, and they would actually go through the whole process and be able to do it themselves so that they can repeat it. So first letter is really, first thing is for them to write everything that they remembered that is significant in their life. So it could be, at 5 years old, let's say they had a fight with their sibling, and it was so traumatic to a 5-year-old at that time that they actually still remember it, maybe 30 or 40 years down the road. So whatever it is that they seem to recall in their life as being significant, that's what I would ask them to write down. So they may have 10 items, they may have 50 items. So however many it is, like usually it only takes maybe about 6 or 7 items, events, then they would be able to start seeing a pattern. However, it's actually very cathartic to do that process of listing and writing every event that sticks out in their mind as being somewhat significant. So it's not just about writing what happened, it's also writing about the stories that they tell themselves about what happened, because that's how we can spot the pattern, is this the story that we spin in order to explain what happens. Because a lot of times when events happen and we don't like it, we don't have a good experience, then we want to somehow make a story about it so that it helps us feel better. So those stories, how we spin the stories, that's really shown, that's showing the pattern. What is the story that we use over and over again to make it okay with the experience? So that is really the pattern to that I want them to spot. So I would ask them to write all the significant events that they can remember. And usually I would ask them to give themselves a good chunk of time, maybe set aside at least 30 to 60 minutes so that they can just in one sitting just do a mind dump and just write all the events out that they can remember. And of course, the process cannot be done in just one sitting. However, um, it's a start. Is a start is to just carve out a chunk of time that they can just write out everything, do a mind dump, events, what happened, and the stories that they tell themselves about what happened. So that's so that they have this. And also, when you write something like that, it may trigger some emotions coming up. And when I work with a client, of course, they have me around that we can process it. However, if you're doing it on your own, then I would suggest you don't just step over it. If some emotions come up and you're still not okay with the events that you are writing down, then don't, process them. I think about 2-3 weeks ago, there's one podcast that is how to let go. So refer back to that in order to really do the get rid of the emotions as well, release the emotions, so that it's so that you won't be a mess by the end of writing all these events out. That's not the point of this exercise. This exercise is really so that you can write everything out or stories out and then see the pattern. So if you are a mess, emotional mess afterwards, it does not help. So process emotions if anything is triggered. And so that is the first step to do, is to write out all the events and the stories. And of course, just leave the second thing is just leave it. Leave it for at least a week. And more often than not, during that week of cooling period, I call that a cooling period, you may all of a sudden remember, oh, I missed that. How could I have missed that? That is, that is significant as well. So you may be doing some touch-ups. You may add some things to it. So that's okay. Like even during the cooling period, if you somehow all of a sudden during that week remembered something that you should put in there as well, then definitely go ahead and add those in, and absolutely put a star next to those, because those things that somehow you have blocked it out of your memory may be significant. It may be nothing, but then it may be the most important as well. So in order to remind yourself that this is something that you somehow um, conveniently forgot about it, but remembered afterwards, then put it in, add it in, and just put a star next to it. So to remind you that this is somehow a forgotten item. And then once the week is over, you kind of get to the point where you have released any kind of emotions that have been stirred up by this process. Then you can, and you kind of forgotten a little bit about it, so that when you get back to it, you can start to look at it from a more neutral perspective, just like reading a book. and you start to, because you have some distance from this letter, from this process, then you can start to look at the events again and start to spot the pattern. So the pattern, when I say pattern, the pattern is really the story that you have been holding on to your whole life. And you've been using the same story to comfort yourself or spin the events that happened in your life. So, for example, one of my story is I remember at one long time ago I bought a lamp, and the first time like it's a beautiful lamp, and I went into an expensive store and I bought it. And so the first time I went into store, took it home, it something was wrong with the something was wrong with it. So I took it back and exchanged for the next one. And the second time, the same thing happened. There's something wrong with the lamp. And so that's seems like an insignificant event, but it's the story that I spin. I somehow have it that I don't deserve beautiful things. I only deserve the more I would say like cheap things that you can get from Walmart or anywhere else. So even when I specifically go to a nice like upscale store to buy just a lamp, it's not even a couch or anything more significant, just a lamp. That is the story that I spun for myself. So that is a pattern that when I look back at it, that's how I've been doing this in a lot of areas in my life. So you may have something like that kind of sticks out in your mind. The event may be very insignificant, but the stories that you spin around it makes it significant, so that even after 20 years, I don't even have that lamp anymore. I still remember that incident. So when you go back and look at the events of your life, you would see a lot of similar patterns, similar ways that events, and also what the story you have in order for you to explain what happened. So it is really in the stories that you can spot your pattern, not so much the events, because the events could be something as insignificant as buying a lamp. So, so that's really the work that you need to do, is to spot what is the overarching story that you have been using over and over again, and you would see from the events that you have put down that you will see that pattern. That pattern will start to be more apparent to you. And that is the pattern that you've been using your whole life in order to create the life that you have right now. And it is not bad, it is not good, it is just how you have chosen to play this game of life so far. And because you chose this pattern, you created it, and therefore you can also uncreate it. And so that is what we are going to do in the next two letters. So the first letter is all just for you to be able to spot the pattern. And you will probably see at least one major pattern, and sometimes maybe another two or three similar but smaller patterns to this. So when you spot your own pattern, then the next letter comes in. The second letter is really a gratitude letter. Life itself is a miracle. And I know sometimes life may not be easy, and maybe you're not having the best time in your life right now. However, I've come to really experience and get to know that everything is simply a miracle. And that we actually create all these experiences so that we can feel and be human. Because when we are soul, when we are eternal soul, we can't experience this. So anything that we can experience, even something as simple as waking up in the morning and seeing the sunshine, and then getting a cup of tea or coffee or whatever hot beverage or even cold beverage that you enjoy, that is something so simple, is also a miracle. And when and the second letter is really the process, or the letter and plus the process of getting to the point where you are grateful. You start to embrace the beauty of being human. So you do this. Of course, you may not feel very grateful when you start the letter. However, the instruction is to list everything that is in your life as at the time of the writing. So if you have, a roof over your head, you have, friends, family members, you have a car or you don't have a car, doesn't matter. Anything that is in your life, you list it. Anything that is in your life at the writing of the second letter, just kind of list it. And then once you have listed it, you may want to actually maybe leave it for a day or two. You don't really have to leave it for too long for the second letter. So wait a little bit and then go back to look at each list. And when you look at everything that is on this list, ask yourself this question: are you grateful for that item that is in your life? And if your answer is not a resounding yes, then you need to ask yourself, what is it? What is the belief that you somehow bought into to have you believe that this is not, that there's something that you shouldn't be grateful for, that there's something wrong with it? So that is the process, is to find out the limiting beliefs that have you somehow believe that this item on your list suck, it's terrible, it's wrong, or something like that. Because nothing in your life is wrong. It is there as an experience. And when you can actually just look at it as an experience and you don't resist it, you don't try to fight it, you don't try to need it to be something else, when you're completely at peace with it, then you can get to being grateful. And something magical happens when you get to being able to be grateful with everything that is in your life, is then you start to become the creator. Because when you get back to being the creator, then you can change things. But when you are still at the effect of that story that you have, is that I don't want this, this is not supporting me, then there is some belief inside you that you have not, you're not seeing yet. And once you let go of that belief and get to the point where you don't resist any one of your creation, because anything that you resist will persist. And I cannot stress this enough, is that if you fight something, if you resist something, then you're not ready to let it go yet. When you can do the processing, the releasing, to the point where you can look at even no matter what it is that's happening, you can just look at it and be at the point where, wow, I can actually see the beauty of my creation. I created this for myself to experience. How wonderful. So I may not enjoy that, but I don't resist it. You just experience it fully and then let it go. And when you get to that point, then you can move on to the next letter. So the third letter is really the creation letter. When you've gone through the second letter, you have come to peace with everything, with your life, and you are at peace with all that is in your life right now. Then you're actually at the vibration and at the moment where you can change anything that you don't prefer. So then the third letter is the creation letter. Tell the universe how you want your life to look, how you want your life to feel. Who do you want to be in order to have that life? And how having that life looking what you want it to look and feeling what you want it to feel, how is that going to expand you, expand your human experience? So this is the third letter, the creation letter, that you tell the universe, not asking, begging the universe to give it to you, but tell the universe that this is what you want and this is how it will expand your experience, your human experience. And when you are at the point where you are at the vibration of grateful, being grateful, then you're also at the vibration where you are not asking for something just from your egoic point of view. You ask for something. You tell the universe how you want your life to look like, because you truly believe that that is going to expand your human experience. And when you write this letter, and after you've written down everything that you want to ask for, leave it for a bit. Leave it for a couple of days, a week, and then go back and look at it. And if you feel somehow when you look at an item that how you want your life to look, how you want it to feel, and how that's going to expand you. If any of the item that you have put in there, if you have some reservation as to, oh, I don't think I deserve that. Maybe I can't have it. Any kind of dissension or any kind of disbelief that you can have that and create that and have that in your universe, in your life, and that's also another belief that you need to release. So do that process of letting go any doubt that you deserve it, because you are the universe. So any thought that you don't deserve it or that it may not be possible is simply a lie. So when you have processed all those lies, when you've let go of any limiting beliefs that have you somehow still hang on to those lies, then the universe will do its best to arrange it for you. And some of the things you tell the universe to show up for you will show up right away, and some may take a little longer. And some may not be in the cards this time around. However, you have to let the universe know. And when you genuinely let the universe know how you want the universe to co-create with you, what you want your life to look like, feel like, and how you want to expand your human experience, then the universe will do its best to show up. And even the items that somehow doesn't seem to be in the cards for you this time around, never lose hope. Never let go of those dreams, because you never know. It may not be right away. However, when you are insistent, the universe will somehow find a way to make it happen for you. So this is the 3 letters process.